Okay, thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Obviously, a very difficult time for our families, our players, our program, our university, our community. I do want to start by thanking some people who have supported us through this difficult time. First and foremost, our board. Rector Whit Clement and Vice Rector Robert Hardy and the Board of Visitors have been extremely supportive of us. Also want to thank President Jim Ryan and J.J. Davis for their support of our program during this time. Their support of our student athletes during this time has been tremendous. Want to thank the community as well, Charlottesville community, university community. We've gotten a ton of support from our colleagues across the country. I even saw a shirt that a hashtag Hokies for Who's. So we've gotten tremendous support from our friends in Blacksburg, in the ACC, and across the country. We've gotten a lot of support from our fans as well. You know, we compete hard, and you know, this industry is very, very competitive. But our fans have been remarkable and shown tremendous support to Coach Elliott, to me, to our department, to our university, but especially to our student athletes. And that has been a source of comfort for them to see how much support there is out there. So thank you for being here today.
You know, I would echo a lot of the comments that Ms. Carla just made. Extremely traumatic and hard time for our team, our program, our institution, our community. And just grateful to all of those who have reached out in support at all levels. My heart's hurting right now for, again, our university, our community, the team, the players, their families, the young men whose families have been impacted the most. That's where my thoughts are at this time, trying to provide all the resources and support that I possibly can. You know, I have to acknowledge the strength of our players and our staff at this time in coming together to be able to work to process what is taking place. Just like many of you all and many of those that are very close to the situation, still in shock, trying to rationalize, but also find encouragement in community with those that have come out and support, and then also those internally who have banded together to try and figure out, you know, how we move forward after going through a situation like this. So again, just heartfelt sympathies go out to, you know, the players, their families, their communities. You know, I think beyond just our communities, but communities in other states have been impacted by the loss of three beautiful young human beings that had a unbelievable future ahead of them. But the message to the team is we're going to celebrate those lives going forward and the impact that they've made thus far and the legacy that they're going to be a part of helping us establish going forward.
As a reminder, as I said initially, there is an ongoing criminal investigation, so some matters we will not be able to answer or address. I'm going to kind of work my way back and apologize for stepping in front of the cameras at some point. If you can identify yourself and your news organization with your first question, and also who your question is directed to, we'd appreciate it. I'll start with Preston.
Yeah, Tony, if you could just kind of describe the past 24 plus hours just with the team and kind of how y'all have approached this past day.
Yeah, feels like it's a nightmare, to be honest with you. And I'm ready for somebody to pinch me and wake me up and say that this didn't happen. You know, it's been I don't even know how long it's been since it happened. It's been you know, and the minutes can't go by fast enough. The approach with the team is, once we were given the clear to communicate, we immediately got the team together and just started the process of grieving together and fellowshipping and trying to make sure that nobody was isolated, that everybody was together, pooled all the resources that we could from a counseling standpoint to give these young men the support that they need. The first meeting was really, really tough. Really, really, really tough. Today was much better. We were able to transition from the pain to finding a little bit of joy in celebrating the lives of Lavelle, Deshaun, and Devin. And so today started probably how the last 2 days have started, but it ended a lot better. And I think, the guys are on the road to healing, but it's going to take some time. And our approach is to keep them together as much as we possibly can, to make sure we have eyes on them, because nothing can prepare you for this situation, and we just want to be there to support the guys. And so we're slowly trying to process and move forward, but we're looking for the positive and keeping, close reins on each other so we can grieve together.
Jackie from 24/7. Carla, what kind of steps for counseling, like, Elliott just touched on, what can you guys been doing for these student athletes moving forward?
So fortunately, we have 3 in-house psychologists for our athletics department, and our lead sports psychologist once worked with the university, and so he's got great connections with the university. So in our first meeting with the student athletes, we had a lot of counselors on hand that were there and available to work with the student athletes, and that not only our football student athletes, but all of our student athletes, we had counselors available for.
Greg Medea from Daily Progress. Tony, just your memories of Lavelle, Deshaun, and Devin, and some of the maybe memories that your players shared with you today.
Appreciate you asking that question. Lavelle, I've known Lavelle for a long time. I recruited him starting his freshman year, and just to see him grow, but big smile, lights up the room, and most people would say because he's the tallest guy in the room, but just his presence, he's got a gentleness about him, but he's passionate about what he believes in, and so a lot of the stories today were just the silly basketball arguments that they would have in debates in the locker room, and everybody knew that they could get Lavelle to kind of hunker down just by saying one thing. But the other thing that resonated is just how good of a teammate he was, and how much he loved his teammates and would do anything for his teammates. And Deshaun, I don't think many people outside of our program understand how special Deshaun was. Very, very, very artistic. Could draw. Could shape pots with clay. Loved music. Very, very cultured and well-rounded. Just a great teammate, and he had a sense of humor that was one of a kind, that only Deshaun could have. And you knew immediately when somebody said something, yeah, that was Deshaun. And then you talk about Devin, man. Devin was he's what you wanted in a young person that's at this level, but he just was a big kid. Smiled all the time, loved to dance, loved to sing, loved to compete, even though the guys revealed that he wasn't very good in video games, but he thought he was. But he loved to compete, and just the thing I remember about him is he always brought a smile to my face, because he just was happy with where he was, comfortable in his skin, and just had a very bubbly personality.
Hi there, Sydney Schuler with the Daily Progress. I'm sorry for your loss, Coach, for the both of you. I just wanted to ask, how are you coping, and how have you and the other members of the football department, how have you been able to cope and lean on each other? Do you have access to those same counseling resources?
I'll start, and for me, the best coping mechanism for me is the young men. Having a chance to be around them and to see them and to see their pain, to see their hurt, just inspires me to keep pushing forward every single day. There's no, you prepare for this job, there's no chapter on a situation like this. And so I'm just trying to figure out step by step how to be strong for these young men. And so I'm really relying on my faith, the foundation that I have there, trying to use that to inspire me every minute of the day. Also trying to make sure that I stay empathetic to everybody and understanding that everybody's going to respond differently to this situation. And, you know, my job is to lead in moments like this. And so I've had my moments where I've broken down and showed my emotions, and I've even had those moments in front of the team. You know, I think it's important that we all grieve. I mean, these are outstanding young men that we don't understand why they're gone so early, and I think it's honorable that we grieve these young men, but also too we have to keep it in perspective and make sure that we take this pain that we're feeling and try to find a way to turn it into passion and motivation to go forward one day at a time.
Hank Kurz with AP. Tony, I know you've dealt with this before at Clemson, kind of a similar situation. What kind of signs do you look for to kind of gauge where the players are in their grief, to kind of, you know, be aware of that? And what do you guys do going forward in terms of schedule and all that stuff?
Yeah, so I think right now it's a little early to be trying to find, you know, the signs. I think everyone is still in shock. Everyone is trying to process their emotions and figure out the proper way for them to grieve. What I'm looking for at this time is just to make sure that nobody is completely isolating themselves, so that we can keep them within the fold and be able to provide them the direct resources that we need. And you know, this situation here is different than what I experienced. And you know, both those young men had just finished playing, and they were close to the team, but not still on the team. We're here. You know, this is a very, very tragic and traumatic incident involving 3 teammates. And so the signs I'll look for the signs as we move forward, but right now it's just to put my arms around these guys, to love them, and realize that we need each other, and figure out the best way to grieve and take it one day at a time. And going forward in terms of the schedule, you know, that'll be determined as we continue to gather information. But the biggest thing for me is to just try to be present in the moment, you know, the best I can, manage my emotions the best I can, so that I can, you know, see clearly, to be able to recognize any sign. Right now, I'm looking for anything that's out of the norm, and then also when I see things that I expect to see, making sure that I don't just say that, well, that's expected, that we dig deeper, that we, you know, try to counsel these young men as they process this whole situation.
Coach, would you mind, for reference sake, naming the players you referenced as former players that passed away?
So that would be C.J. Fuller and Tyshawn Dye were two young running backs that I coached, coached their entire career, saw them graduate, and their lives were cut, you know, short, way too short. But
Tony, Mike Barber, Richmond Times-Dispatch. I believe you were at the hospital. Do you have an update for us on Mike Hollins and his condition?
You know, I don't have enough information at this time. I was there just in support of the family, and out of respect of the family, I just I don't have enough information to speak intelligently on where that is. I was just there for support.
And Carla, could you tell us what will go into the decision about whether or not there's a game on Saturday?
We'll make it together. I mean, it'll be discussion with Coach and the team. Obviously, they're going through a lot, and we want to make sure that they're involved as well. And so we'll use our best judgment, but it'll be soon. We'll make a decision soon.
Tony, Gene Wong with the Washington Post. You mentioned, accepting the position as a coach. This is, not anything you would imagine as part of the job description. As a parent, though, and how do you address your family and about what's happened, and what do you tell them?
That's tough. My wife she's right by my side, handling things well. With her upbringing, my upbringing, we've experienced some difficult situations independently and together. The tough part is my boys and my 9-year-old, and he considers these guys his friend. And that's what's tough. And then every time I see him hurt, I think about the 125 guys that I got. And that's how their moms see them. And so, we're taking it one day at a time, trying to teach a 9-year-old about the reality of life on a level that he can understand it. And we're just, putting our arms around him, loving him, supporting him, and trying to teach him as much as he can comprehend. And my 7-year-old is not quite at the age yet where he fully can process what's going on. But he's probably doing the best of all of us.
Ryan Nobles, NBC News. Again, sorry for both of your losses. I'm not sure who can answer this question specifically, whether or not it's you, Coach, or you, Ms. Williams, but can you speak to whether or not the hazing incident that the police department talked about yesterday had anything to do with the football program?
I can speak to that. I'm not aware of anything related to that, and I don't have any details beyond that, but I'm not aware of anything related to that.
Ross Dellinger, SI. Carla, any details on what led up to this on the bus, the incident at all?
No, and really anything related to the investigation, I won't be able to speak to, so sorry.
One more thing, the vigil last night, the thousands of students, curious if you guys saw videos or were there or saw pictures and what you made of that support.
Yeah, and I meant to thank the students in my opening remarks. I was there, and with my son and his friend, it was amazing. It was remarkable to see all of those students out there supporting their classmates like that. Was healing, quite frankly, and and there were a lot of student athletes there from different sports. There were a lot of coaches there because everyone wants to support Coach Elliott and wants to support this team. And so for this university and its students to do something like that in the face of this difficulty was really healing.
Yeah, Dan Wolkin, USA Today. Carla, since this happened yesterday, how much internally in the athletic department have you all gone back to try to research the accused killer and what role he might have played with the football program previously?
We have really focused on our players and their families, and it's so shocking that you just want to love on our players. And so that's where we have spent our energies, that's where we've spent our time, and I think that's what we need to continue to do. So we haven't done that. We haven't done what you're asking. What we've done is try to focus on the families of the players who lost their lives, who were injured, and our current players.
Caroline Darney, USA Today for the win. There are players that have transferred out since last year, and there are coaches that were here that coached and recruited these players. What has that process been like with regards to reaching out to? I know Bronco's in town. You saw Jim Harbaugh talk about Olu. What has that process been like, trying to make sure those players are in the fold, and even Wisconsin, announcing statements about how Devin and Chandler impacted their community as well?
Yeah, I think we've heard from people everywhere. I mean, it's so tragic. And I think everyone can really place themselves in our shoes. Coaches can place themselves in Coach Elliott's shoes. Athletic directors, administrators can do the same with me. You know, so it hasn't been a matter of us reaching out to people. People have been reaching out to us, and I think that's, you know, helpful to all of us. It's great for me to hear from my colleagues, and I think it's good for our players to hear from their friends, their peers at other schools. I've heard them talk about that as well too. So in times of adversity, you just don't want to feel alone. And so I think all of our peers across the country have recognized that and reached out.
Chris Rim, New York Times. Coach, did you talk to players, or have you thought about the game at all on Saturday? I know sometimes the situations, the playing can be a form of healing for players or coaches. Is that something you would feel comfortable doing, or think your players would feel comfortable going on the field?
At this point, with the sequence of events and the timing, I've just been focusing on loving these players, consoling the families, trying to make sure that there's no ripple effect with the guys on the team, because again, this is something that, you know, nobody is prepared to deal with until you're inside of it. So for me, the focus is not past today. I'm just trying to figure out a way to get everybody back together this evening so that we can see them again and spend some time, and then in due time we'll collaborate on the path going forward in terms of on the field play.
Heather Graff with ABC 7 News. Coach, I know you said you didn't want to talk about Mike Collins' condition, and we understand that, but was hoping you could tell us a little bit about him as well, and some of your memories with him and his impact on and off the field.
Yeah, so Mike, and I've said this publicly before, and you know, his family is aware of this. I'm hard on Mike because Mike has a ton of potential, and what I've seen, you know, out of him is a very workman mentality in engaging the discipline and the structure, which has resulted in improvements in his play down the stretch. But he's always got a smile on his face. You know, he's very inquisitive. You know, he's one of those guys that will ask you serious questions, and he'll tilt his head to the side and say, "Hey, coach, got a question." And but you know, he's a guy that does what you ask him to do. He's got a big personality, and I think he's a young man that's fully invested in this institution, this program, and he's a guy that I've seen, you know, really start to kind of come into his own from a leadership standpoint.
Thank you. Evan Lambert with News Nation. Thanks for doing this, and I'm sorry. Can you give us any insight into the suspected shooter's history on the team? When did he stop playing and why? And did he ever overlap with the victims on the team?
I'll take that one. What I do know is that the young man was a student beginning in 2018 and was a walk-on for one semester with our football program. And I don't believe there was no overlap, and so I don't know if there was any interaction outside of the class.
Hi, I'm Eva Serval with the Cavalier Daily. I'm just curious how students and faculty members and community members can support not just the football team, but the entire Virginia athletics community, all student athletes.
We've been working with the university, in particular Robin Hadley with Student Affairs, and she's talking with student leaders about how we can honor our 3 student athletes moving forward and support the team. We've had several meetings with the university in this regard, so we'll continue to do those. But working through, as a student, working through the student leadership groups, that's where we're getting some information, some feedback from those groups as to how we can support the team moving forward.
Carla, do you want to give an update on our other athletic teams this week?
So the only athletic event that we canceled was the men's basketball game last night, and we'll continue on with our normal schedule for the rest of our teams competing this week, several in postseason.
Faith Abube, ABC News. My condolences to you both, Ms. Williams and Coach, as your team and your players were trying to deal with their grief and process everything. Are they coming to you with questions? What are they asking, and what are they finding hard to process?
I'd say the biggest questions right now are how are the families of their deceased teammates? They're really just trying to process everything that happened, and all the questions that I've gotten for the most part is, okay, Coach, how do we move forward? You know, what's the next step in this process? I think you have a football team that is grieving, that is hurt, but that is also very, you know, self-aware that this situation is bigger than football, and it transcends football. They understand that football has an opportunity, right, to show its beauty. They understand that, you know, this institution and this community has an opportunity to show its beauty, you know, through this tragedy. But their biggest questions are, you know, how are the families, and when will we have an opportunity to possibly interact with the families?
We're going to take two more questions. Mike, I'll come back up front.
Coach and Carla, Olivia Jakewith with WRIC 8 News. I'm sorry, I'm not going to stand up here, but I just wanted to start by saying really my sincerest condolences to you both and to this entire community. Our heart all breaks for you. You talked about each of the players as individuals, both as players and people. Can you kind of describe the dynamic on your team amongst those players and the rest of their teammates prior to this incident?
So from a dynamic standpoint, Devin was the life. He was the life of the party. He always kept everybody entertained. He was the one that was, you know, in the weight room when everybody else is, and he was serious, but he had his own way of being serious, and he would keep everybody energized, and he found a way to make it fun, even though sometimes, you know, the work that they have to do on a daily basis can be very monotonous in order to improve their skill level, but he brought just a ton of personality. Lavelle was, and he was, you know, one of the big men on campus, so to speak, because everybody knew who he was. But he always, you know, found a way to keep them entertained. But he also set the standard for what it's supposed to look like to work, in the way that he practiced, the way that he prepared, and then all the things that he did when the coaches may not have been present, that his teammates saw. And Deshaun was the quiet guy that everybody wanted to know more about, because he was very, very, like I said, very, very interesting young man in terms of the depth. And when you look at him, you might not think that, you know, he listens to classical music and draws and shapes pots. But his teammates knew that, and they wanted to know more about him. So he was, you know, probably the most interesting man on the team, if you had to kind of compare him to somebody. And I've told him that, and I've told his teammates that, because I value the skills and talents that he possesses beyond the game. So that's kind of how all three of them fit into the dynamic of our team.
Tony, I understand there's a lot of logistical issues in this question, but if you've thought, Mike Barber from the Richmond Times-Dispatch, if you've thought about, do you want to take the team to these players' funerals? And Carla, if you could speak to what the NCAA rules are in regards to transportation paying for that kind of a trip.
There are a ton of logistics associated with what you just asked, and my initial thoughts are to be sensitive of whatever the young men desire to do as it relates to their teammates. And per Carla's response from an NCAA standpoint, I won't stand in the way from that, because again, this is way bigger than football. This is a life situation here. And so I haven't given much thought beyond, okay, we don't even know those details at this time. So, but my initial thought is to support them in whatever they decide that they want to do, and support the families, you know, because, again, not only is this community impacted, but I think about the community in North Carolina, the community in Florida, and the community in South Carolina that are impacted by this tragic event.
The rules are permissive, so we'll do whatever it takes that helps our players heal and support the families of our 3 players.
Tony, one piece of information. Chief Longo told us yesterday there were about 25 people on that bus on that trip. Were any of your other players on there who